Hey guys, my name is Frank Dorff and welcome to a new episode in our digital classroom series called How Did I Shoot This One? In this series, we talk about shots I took during our workshops that are a little bit more special or have a different challenge in them. Today, we're going to talk about the scenic backdrop and this shot. Now, scenic backdrops are awesome, but scenic backdrops are, well, you can use them separately and then you place somebody in front of it and, well, you have a scenic backdrop. But I like to create a little bit more depth. Now, in this case, I already love the print. It gives you that really vintage look, right? Really warm and it's very inviting. So we decided to put our dog Chewy in front of it. Now, as you can see in this image, we didn't just place him in front of the backdrop. We're actually using a prop, in this case a chair. And this is where it's all about today. With a scenic backdrop, you can create more depth by using props. And this is something that I highly recommend you guys. So let's do a step-by-step how we set something like this up. The first thing, of course, choose the scenic backdrop. Well, that's what we already did. The second part is actually looking at the shadows of your scenic backdrop. If the shadows fall like this, I would highly recommend using your main light under the same angle. It's very weird to see shadows on the backdrop going like this and then your main light coming from that side. It just doesn't feel right. But we also want to create depth. The scenic backdrop is already great, but by creating depth, you make it more real. And that also means that when you shoot from different angles, you don't really notice it's just a backdrop because your eyes are focused on the model, on everything in front of the backdrop, and it just fills in the blank for the backdrop. And it really works nicely. Now in this case, we're of course using a chair for our model Felisa. Of course, in our photo shoots, we don't use a real fur, so don't worry about that. So we're using a chair, and well, the chair, it wasn't enough, we wanted to create more depth. So we have some branches in our studio that we used, and then I realized, those branches, they have little lights. Wouldn't it be great to also use those lights in the setup? But then it looked a little bit empty, so let's also get a lamp and put that on the right side in our set. So now we built the set and it looks pretty cool. The only problem is, of course, we want to make sure that those lights also register in the picture. Now there are two things you have to realize. One is the strobe has a different color temperature than the continuous lighting. Continuous lighting in this case is much more reddish than the strobe. The strobe is around 5000 degrees Kelvin or 5500 degrees Kelvin, a little bit depending on your strobe. The lighting in the back, however, is much lower, around 2000 degrees Kelvin, a little bit comparable to, well, a tungsten light bulb. If you want to make sure that those two colors are absolutely the same, you have to use something called a color correction gel. You place those in front of your strobes and it will make sure that the color temperature of your strobes is very near to, for example, your tungsten light source. And we all know it, right? If you shoot on the fluorescent lights, you use a little bit of green. When you shoot on the tungsten light, you use a little bit more of an orange tint to make sure that those colors, well, interact a little bit better. In this case, I didn't want to do that because I like the contrast between that warmer tint and, of course, the strobes. Now, of course, also those little lights emit a lot less light than my strobes. So when you set something up, you want to make sure that you put your strobe on the lowest possible setting and then just mix in the available light with your shutter speed. Remember, the strobe is just one pulse of bright light, and the longer you leave your shutter open, the more the normal light will capture on your sensor and create that nice glowing effect that you want in your shots, but don't overdo it. Now, as soon as you create depth in your set, this is also when you can start using different angles and make it a little bit more interesting. So during the photo shoot, I always walk around my model, sit on the floor, shoot from different angles, sometimes even from very high up down or very low up, and that just all adds to that depth. Now, of course, you can also experiment with your wide angles. For example, go really close to your model, shoot on 24mm and create a very, very nice depth image, or go all the way back and zoom in with 200mm and just compress everything. And everything in between works. It all gives you different looks. This is also one of the reasons why in the studio I don't use a lot of primes. So in the studio I use the 24-70 lens on my Sony. Now the nice thing about the 24-70 is of course that I can shoot wide and I can shoot on 70, so compress it. Now, in the past, I used the 70 to 200, and the disadvantage of the 70 to 200 is, of course, that it always compresses. It compresses on 70 and it compresses on 200, so I don't have that nice wide angle effect. Of course, you can throw your backdrop out of focus very easily on 2.8, but in all honesty, with 70 mil on 2.8, I also have more than enough shallow depth of field option. So that's why I really like the 24 to 70. Lighting setup, very, very simple. One aimed light source on our model because we don't want to spread it out over the whole set and we want to get that really nice, close, vintage, warm look. And of course, we're using the continuous lighting. So we can talk about it for hours. Let's take a look at the behind the scenes video. As you can see, a really nice, simple setup, and that scenic backdrop really adds a lot to these kinds of shots. And that's one point of attention. If you are, well, choosing backdrops for your studio, I highly recommend getting at least one scenic backdrop, one that's a little bit more standard, like an old master, where you can create nice portraits, draw a little vignette about it, and just have a very neutral shot, and one that really goes out with bright colors, for example, a graffiti. That way you can work with the more basic backdrop for your families or your CEOs, the scenic backdrop if you want the whole body in there or you want to create a little set, and of course the graffiti one for that nice and bright colors for example, kids or maybe a rock or rap artist. You never know. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Smash the like and bell notification button, of course, but most of all, tell other people about our channel so we can grow and create more content for you guys. Thank you so very much for watching. See you again next time. Keep shooting, stay creative, and get some scenic backdrops. Thank you very much. Bye bye.